I need someone who's Muslim just to sit down here. I have one person. I need a second person. Yo, you good? Wait, hang on. You were down here the other day, though. Somebody else who hasn't been down in front. Someone who's Muslim. There's got to be somebody. Yo, man. Could be a woman. Doesn't matter. What's your name again? What's your name? Mala. Mala?
Yeah, Mala.
Mala. Somebody, who else? Who else wants to do it? Anybody? All right, dude, you're on, man. Okay, so you're just going to hang down here. You just want some Muslim energy down in the front, okay? All right, bro? We're just getting Muslim energy down in the front. Okay, so a number of years ago, back in 2010, I gave a talk, and in the talk I discussed what it would be like to be an average, ordinary Iraqi going through the wars and the invasions, starting back in the early 90s, and sanctions, and then the renewed war, and one thing after another, and all of the things that happened in Iraq. And I walked the audience through what that would probably be like as an average, ordinary Iraqi. And I had not spoken with many average, ordinary Iraqis, but I just really had a sense of what that would be. And parts of that talk was to have people put themselves in the shoes of insurgents who saw themselves as defending their country against invaders who were there for oil, because that's essentially what the most recent war was about under the Bush administration, was a quest for oil and control of natural resources. And that's just widely accepted at this point, and it was pretty widely accepted back then. And I asked people to put themselves in the shoes of this guy, these guys, people like this, who were attacking Americans, they would say defending their land, who were really unsettled by everything that they saw. And I had people, for example, imagine that some other country invaded the United States because they wanted our coal or our natural gas or something, right? It was pretty radical because, to ask Americans to step in the shoes of people they identify as terrorists who are attacking and killing other Americans is kind of a radical thing to do. But I didn't want people to support these guys. I just wanted them to understand how and why they might pick up guns and fight, right? And so in the process, I was contacted by people, really many people, a lot of people in the military. Surprisingly, many, many, many people in the military supported what I said, and they agree with me and so on, right? And then quite a number of people around who are Muslim around the world. And one guy from Iraq contacted me and he said, hey, you know what? He found my email online and he said, I am that average, ordinary Iraqi Muslim. Didn't really think much about politics. I'm an engineer. And I can say that Iraqis, average, ordinary people, largely feel exactly like what you said. This is it. This is where they came down. And so we started talking. And then over the years, he would Skype into my class, and I taught another class on war, and so we'd talk about war, and he'd Skype into this class, or VTC in, and we would talk about culture in the Middle East and life in Iraq and all sorts of things, right? We really had some very interesting conversations, and we became friends. And he's pretty active on Facebook, and so, just over the years, this was 2010 is when I did the talk, so over the ensuing years, we just connected a lot. So, so it turns out, he, lived in Mosul, which is up here. This is Baghdad. Here, this is Mosul up in the north, kind of, closer to the border with Syria. And so I learned about him. and he had studied in Michigan, and he was married. This is a picture. Ultimately, it was married to his wife. She's Iraqi, also from Mosul, Mayada, and this is a picture of them in Michigan. So I got different photos. I mean, you sort of learn. Here, here's Bassem at graduation with Mayada, and just lots of really just a guy. Went back to Iraq, built a house, had a family, had 2 children. And that's his house, really nice house in Mosul. And built a house next to his brother. And his brother was married and had 2 children and 2 beautiful houses right next door to each other. And just, had a life. Average, ordinary life. Family was in pharmacies, and so had a couple pharmacies in Mosul, and just, Here, this is his brother's house. So this is Bassem's son here. This is a cousin. Here's his brother. Here's his nephew. Bassem is taking the photo. Bassem takes tons of photos. He's always taking photos, right? So it's a nice house. Nice people. Average, ordinary people. Very nice people. So come 2015 in the fall, I was on Facebook. I was in St. Louis at the time for a wedding. One of my former students was getting married, and I saw this. And can you read that? Can you read that? Okay. So here's what it said, and I didn't know what it was, but I saw feeling sad, and do you have? Hang on one second. Can anyone read that? Anyone want to read it for me? All right, hang on. So here's what it says. It says, in the middle of the night, coalition planes targeted 2 houses occupied by innocent civilians. This part, now I didn't know this, right? But I knew there was something was happening with my friend Bassem. Now he's my friend, right? So I cut it out. I pasted it in Google Translate. It says, this barbarian attack cost me the lives of my wife, my daughter, my brother, and my nephew. May they rest in peace, and may Allah Almighty accept them as martyrs. Martyr is just the death, the killing of someone who is adherent to God, to Allah. And so I said, okay, this isn't possible. What? My friend? Like how? What is this? Right? So I contacted him on Facebook, and we started talking right away. And yeah, it turns out. So he sent me this photo. That's his house. And it was true. It had just happened. That's his brother's house. And then in the process of texting back and forth, he sent this text to me. And, you can imagine just how stunned how stunned, right? Like just a sense of disbelief. Like how do you hold this? How do you hold something like this? And then he sent that. And ultimately, his brother, Bassem's nephew, Bassem's daughter, and Bassem's wife were killed by coalition forces in a war that Iraqis never wanted, in a war that the Western nations, led by the United States, started because we wanted Iraqi oil and we wanted to control the politics of the Middle East. A war that we imposed on another nation. So all the destruction, all of the killing, all of the bloodshed, in the end, comes down around it impacts in a direct way the family and my friend and his family. And so it took me a little bit of time because Bassem was pretty seriously injured and had to have an operation and had to leave, had to cross through Syria in the middle of the war in Syria to get to Turkey to have an operation. And many, many things happened along the way. And it took me some time to convince Bassem to come back and talk to students, talk to my classes, because he was so heartbroken. But I did. And he did come back and talk. And so every semester I say, please come back and talk some more. And he does. And so he's here today calling in from Mosul to have a conversation with us. And so we are going to continue this conversation. Bassem, can you hear me okay? Can you do me?
No, Sam.
Hey, Bassem, how are you? Can you hear me?
I hear you right.
Okay, good. So, welcome once again to 100 Thomas.
Thank you so much.
Hey, so one of the, I think you heard my introduction. Bassem, by the way, was here last year at this time. So, and you will be coming back in the fall. So it will be lovely to have you again. But one of the things that is really on my mind right now that I think you can help us think through a little bit is a lot of anti-Muslim rhetoric that's coming up in the American press. We have some new congressional representatives who are Muslim women. I'm just seeing I'm seeing a rise of hate again. And I titled this class An Ordinary Muslim because you're an ordinary guy. And I'm wondering if you could just say a little bit about that. First off, about your own journey, what you've gone through and how you've gone through this experience and where you're at now. But then we'll talk a little bit more about others. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sam, for having me in your class. After what happened to me, and for the first few months when I was in Turkey, I still was not aware of what had happened. And I was angry for the first few months. But then I decided to speak out because I thought that the best way to let people know what happened in Mosul, in Iraq, is through me. So because I spoke decent English, I started reaching out to journalists. I went to the American embassy. I filed a case with the American consulate in Baghdad, and I started talking. People keep asking me, how can you talk without the hatred? Muslims are known for not hating, but we have been stereotyped. So after what happened to me, I feel I am on a crusade as one individual to speak out, to talk to people. After I came to your class last year, and then all through these years I've been talking, I've met so many student friends, and I keep talking to them. So if I can convince few people that Muslims are not terrorists, Muslims are peace-loving religion, the hatred is coming back. You saw what happened in New Zealand in the mosque. It's so sad. I keep emphasizing that revenge is not the answer. Talking to people, especially to young generation. And this is my crusade now. Just talk, keep talking.
So, yeah, thank you. So one of the questions that students often ask you, or the people ask you is, and I want to go back, you responded, but I would like you to say more. How is it possible that you don't hate? And can you just talk a little bit more about your journey, your way of seeing that? What has shifted in you?
You know, Sam, I was asked this question by Iraqis and by Americans. How can you not hate? I cannot generalize the idea. I mean, there are some people who will have hatred in them, so they will go out and commit violent crimes against each other. You have the same problem. For me, I found this to be a peaceful solution to my pain, is not to hate, it's to forgive. And that's what I've been doing all over, and it kept me calm. It made me more talkative to people in a loving way. So this has, I am not the general person, but I am not the only one. There are many people who would like to talk, just talk.
Yeah, I think one thing that really strikes me is that in a way I argue that you're actually ordinary, because most people want peace and justice. And if they experienced what you experienced, most people would want peace and they would want justice. They imagine that they actually would want revenge. But when it actually happens to them, people want peace and justice. They want to stop the violence. And I think that sometimes the people who have more power think that the people who have less power are going to rise up with vengeance. But in fact, that's not the case, and it's never the case throughout history. So my experience when I was in Iraq as an American was that I was warmly embraced, and that people were very happy I was there. They showed such an immense amount of kindness just to have me there, just as a visitor, so.
Yes, Sam, you witnessed and you experienced the love of the Iraqis. We went to many places, so you had to see people from different cultures. I've said this before, I lived in the United States for 8 years. I have so many American friends, and my friends have increased in the last 2-3 years, especially from your students. And we keep talking, we keep chatting all the time. At the beginning, people here, they told me that forgiveness is the way of the coward, because you are weak and you have nothing, you can do nothing to the country that killed your family. I said, well, if I'm weak, then I will speak. I will tell them what I feel. When I came to the United States, I went to Congress, I talked to senators, I still do. If we can stop this violence, then I am at peace. I'm so happy.
Yeah, and it's a violence that the other side of things is that the violence is committed by a very small number of people, and the same as the violence in Christianity, that's committed by a very small number of people. So that's the other side of things, that people don't understand that. Hey, so I want to say a couple things. Help my students understand this war. I mentioned how we were there for oil, but you often talk about how... Wait. Okay, so you have talked about how we broke Iraq, and Iraq was actually functioning quite well. I remember when I was there that somebody said, Iraq was like, or Saddam Hussein was like a hornet's nest, It's like if you just leave it alone, if you leave the government alone, you'll be fine. And many governments are like that. But, you know, what you've always said is that we broke the system, and now we really need to fix it because we broke it out of our own greed, power, and desire for what you have. And so could you talk a little bit about that? Like help people understand the history of something that, you know, most people in this room were just young children when the war started. All right, hang on 1 second. Hey, Bassem, if you might have to call back. Oh, wait, there you are. Did you hear me? Did you hear my question?
You hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I said this before, and I talked to some American officials when I was in Jordan. I said, you broke it, you fix it. What happened was in 2003, when the United States invaded Iraq, they dismantled the complete system. They dismantled the government. They sent the army home. They sent the police force home. So for 3 months, we had total lawlessness. I did not see a police officer or an army in the street. So, and then we've been used to a governing of dictatorship for 30, 40 years. One person ruled Iraq. We were not used to democracy. And I've always talked to young generation. I said, democracy is something you should be born into, you should practice, you should not be just dumped upon you. Most people here, after 2003, when America brought democracy, they did not understand what democracy was. They thought that democracy is doing anything you want, anywhere, anytime, which is wrong. So the complete political system of Iraq was changed. Now we have election. We've never had election. We had election when Saddam was in power. It was a show. I mean, Saddam will win by 99.9%. Now we have elections. People started going to referendum, to elections, and they start moving into it. But it will take, in my opinion, years and years for us to realize what democracy is. Now it's a little bit better. I mean, we've had this is the fourth government after 2003. What's hurting us is corruption. Corruption is killing Iraq. And we just are in a cycle of corruption, and we cannot get out of it. I don't know what to do about it. Okay.
I want to show some students a couple more photos. So I don't know if you can see that, but this is your granddaughter. These are some photos. When Bassem was here last year, his first grandchild was born to his son. So this is her, Mimi. Mayada, his son named him after his mother, named her after her mother. So she's beautiful, right? It's cool. She's really beautiful, Bassem. Yeah. And I want to show, yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. I want to show a couple more photos. So can you, Jeff? There's a link on this. Is that possible to underneath it, just pop out of it? Yeah. All right. So listen, one of the things, Bassem, I'm going to show them couple photos here, right? One of the things that you have to understand about Iraq, about countries. I hear people talk about the Middle East and Middle East this, Middle East that. Of course, they've never ever thought about Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and so on. But how just broken down everything is. But what I see, and what I often like to show, are all the ways in which countries in the world are just like us. And so one of the places where we went when we were there a couple times actually, is a shopping mall. And I know I filmed this in the wrong way, but just look at this footage that I filmed. It's not a foreign place. Most of you could be very home here. There's a Santa Claus in the middle of this Muslim country. And play it one more time, bro. Just redo it. Bassem doesn't need to see this because, oh, he can see it. Look, do you see that? Can you just imagine yourself there? It's not so foreign. Stores from all over the world, different places, but we don't see this in the U.S. This isn't the kind of stuff that really comes home. And so it allows us to maintain this distance between us and, let's say, Iraqis. But there are malls all over. So here, all right, we're going to go back to the slideshow. Bassem, I'm going to keep going with a couple more things, okay? And then we can talk about this. I want to talk about, you and I were talking about Notre Dame and the destruction. And this is the mosque in El Nouri, the El Nouri Mosque. So this is one of the most famous mosques in the world, and it's famous. They call it the Hunchback. This is in Mosul. And they call it the Hunchback. Obviously, it's very old, but it has this minaret that's kind of leaning. And that's where it gets the name the Hunchback. But it's a beautiful old mosque. And ISIS destroyed it. And ISIS, meaning the radical fringe of Muslims, the tiny, 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 tiny percentage of a percent of Muslims destroyed it, which is about the same size as the tiny, tiny, tiny percent of Christians who do the same kind of damage to the world. And so this is the mosque here. And so, Bassem, can you say a couple things about that when you were watching the destruction of Notre Dame yesterday? Because I was thinking about all of the religious buildings and the holy sites that all around the Islamic world that have been destroyed as a result of this war that we have started, that we put in place. The armies that we have funded and given weapons to, and all of this stuff that emerges out of the United States. And I think about destruction like that, and I think about how easy it is for Americans to think that that's happening over there and that we're not connected with it. And I think of all the passion right now that is going out toward Notre Dame, and an equal amount of passion in the Muslim world that is exhibited toward all of these beautiful old Islamic sites that have been destroyed in the past 20 years. And so, would you like to say anything on that? Wait, hang on. Go ahead. No, hang on.
When they mentioned the date it was built, it was exactly of the same century that An-Nuri Mosque was. It was on the 12th century, I think. And this An-Nuri Mosque it has the bent menorah, and it was the best representation of the city of Mosul. Well, Mosul, we call it the city of two springs, and Al-Hadba. Al-Hadba means the bend. So this mosque was when Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, when he first entered Mosul, he gave his first Friday sermon was at that mosque. And it was bombed by them, ISIS, in like a year and a half later. they bombed so many mosques. Their idea of bombing the mosques is many mosques in Mosul, they have people buried in them. So according to their version of Islam, you cannot have a mosque with a 2 minutes. So they demolished every mosque. And almost every old mosque in Mosul, ancient mosque, had a 2 minutes. So just came into my mind how people of Mosul, when I watched it being bombed, I cried because I was born in Mosul in 1960 and it was there, and when I returned to Mosul it was gone, and I was looking at people in France weeping and crying and sending prayers for that cathedral. It just crossed points at me. I mean, every religion has something sacred to it. We have the mosque, you have the cathedrals and the churches. We are the same. We are the same.
Yeah, the same. There's no difference at all, really. And worship the same God. And this is the profound peace that I experience in my work and travel and friendship with Muslims and Christians and Jews and everybody else. Hey, so Bassem, one final thing. You remember that before I want to take some questions. You remember you sent me an image on Messenger with the 5 pillars of Islam. Can you just say something about this and what that means to you, and actually what Islam means to you at this point? Because 3 years ago you're an engineer. You were pretty secular, and so your faith has emerged in a different kind of way these past 3 years.
Okay, so we have the 5 pillars of Islam.
And what I want,
As-salat, which is a prayer. We pray 5 times a day. Al-zakat, which is giving 1/25. There's some equation that rich people, when they have enough money, that they have it in a bank for a year, total fiscal year, then they have to pay some of the money, let's call it tax, to the poor. So this is kind of a system that was developed in Islam for the rich to help the poor. Hajjul Bayt, Hajj is the pilgrimage to Mecca. Shahadat an la ilaha illallah, we acknowledge that there is only one God, and Muhammad is his messenger, the final messenger. So every Muslim, there's another one, there's a 5th one.
Yeah, the fasting.
Salah, Zakah, Hajj al-Bayt.
Yeah, you have salat and you have fasting.
It's really the picture. Anyway, so every Muslim will abide by these 5 pillars of Islam. So this is basically what Islam is about.
And how about you though? What's it mean for you? How has your faith helped you? How has Islam helped you?
For me, fasting. Fasting. Ramadan fasting. Fasting, it's a kind of discipline to the body. We fast from sunrise to sundown for 1 month. And it's like a discipline. You feel how the poor, they feel when they don't have food. It's a detoxing of your body. There's so many benefits to fasting. Praying, I pray 5 times a day. I did not used to pray when I was young, but I started like 20 years ago. We have the prayer in the morning, sunrise, then we have the noon prayer, and then in the afternoon, sundown and Isha, which is like 2 hours after. And remember, you listen to the sound in the mosque when they call for prayer. For zakat, I used to pay for zakat when I was working. Now I am unemployed. So I'm not doing zakat now because I don't have what should be given. So I don't do zakat. Hajj, I've never been to Mecca. I wanted to go, but I've never been there.
Okay, so Bassem, this is my final piece. So tell me, how has Islam opened your heart since the accident? And I should say to the class, Bassem, there are many things that he could call, how he could label the bombing that killed his family and destroyed his home. But he prefers to use the word the accident because maybe you could say why you prefer accident, but also how has Islam opened your heart?
Okay, so I was born Muslim. I've been Muslim all of my life. But since my accident, I was in Baghdad for like a year and a half on crutches. And I kept thinking that there must be a really, really supreme power that saved me. Because I was in bed next to my late wife and there was about a foot between us. She was killed and I was spared. So it kept me thinking, there must be a reason for me to stay alive. So for the first time, a year after I came back from Turkey, for the first time, usually here in Ramadan, we read the Quran from cover to cover, and which I have never done before. And that year I did. So reading the Quran, you learn so many things. And after you read it once, there are so many complicated verses in the Quran that we have an explanation attached to the Quran. So I will go back, read it, and sometimes even the translation, I don't understand it. So I call somebody. So it really got me closer to my religion. My faith grew stronger because I knew I was saved for a purpose. Like I was saved maybe for my son. My son was in Baghdad at that time. He left Mosul immediately after ISIS invaded the city. Maybe God saved me to be with my son so he won't lose both parents. That's how my faith got stronger.
Hey, remind us, the Americans, the United States, offered you remuneration for the death of your 4 family members and for your house. And what was it that the United States offered to pay you?
Okay, after I filed my case with the United States Consulate in Baghdad, about 7 to 8 months, I received an email from the United States Department of Defense, and they wanted to meet with me, so they met me here in Erbil. And they offered me what they call a Sociology payment, which is saying sorry. And the amount they offered me for the death of my daughter and my wife was $15,000, which I rejected, of course, because I thought it was a disgrace to offer this amount for the loss of lives and property and loss of my job, the damage to my pelvis and health. So I rejected that amount.
So $15,000 for the lives of your wife and your daughter and your house. Is that right?
Yeah, for the house, for my car, 2 cars, and for the house and for the loss of my income and total.
$15,000. And what is the price? What does the United States usually pay when we kill an innocent civilian? Is it $2,000?
$2,500. $2,500. Because I spoke and I reached out, they said it was an exception in your case, and you were offered 3 times the usual amount.
And that's also to
for
cover
per
your
person.
house. Yeah, because we never pay anybody when we destroy their house. We don't pay anybody.
No.
Yeah. Okay, Bassem, I'm gonna. Do you one of you two have a question? 2 of our Muslim classmates. Do you have a question for him? Would you like to say anything to him?
Yeah,
Can you come up here though, because the microphone is up here. Here, you can.
It's just, Assalamu alaikum. I just want to say Allah yarham
Here.
ahlak.
Here.
It's in
Talk.
Arabic.
No, that's okay. Let him hear.
I just wanted to say Allah yarham ahlak, or Allah yawik. And that's just saying, may they rest in peace and God give you strength. Because I would be so much more frustrated than you are. But that's all.
Shukran, thank you so much.
And tell him where you're from. Like, what's your-
I'm originally from Palestine.
Can you hold the mic? I cannot hear you very well.
Wait, hang on.
I'm originally from Palestine.
And what's your name?
Malak.
Yeah.
I hear you.
You said you can't hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
good.
Yeah, I'm Malak. I'm from Palestine originally. And that's it.
So when you say that you would be more frustrated, that would be really hard for you, what do you see? What do you envision?
I mean, I would feel frustrated initially, definitely. I think anytime that I would think about that, if it did happen to me, I would be frustrated just because we see similar things like that happen so often in Palestine. So, and it frustrates me, and thank God it hasn't happened to my family, but it frustrates me anyway. So I feel like if this actually happened to me, it would be very frustrating. But I agree with you in the sense of finding patience in religion, because a big aspect of Islam is that everything's written, and what's meant to be is going to happen, whether it be good or bad. But
So one of the things, Bassam, that I would, Bassam has talked about this on the 40th day, on our 40th day, right? It's written. So one of the things that I've experienced, I've been to Israel and Palestine a number of times, and I have many colleagues and friends who are Palestinian who have lost, and Israelis who have lost.
Yeah.
And what I find is that everybody wants peace and justice.
Yeah.
People don't want revenge. I've never met anybody who wants revenge
because
who's
it's
lost.
tiring. Like, if you see
Yeah.
a human being dead on the ground, like, at one point you have to say, when is this going to stop? So,
But most people want peace.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more the government more than anything, but that's most surprising because they know the most about it, and you think that since they are the government and they know exactly what's happening, that they would have more sympathy, but they really don't. And I think that's what's so frustrating, because I've had conversations with like my discussion group about things that have gone on in Palestine or just in Iraq or any other place, and the discrimination against Muslims that happens. And a lot of people don't know about it, but the thing is the government does. So, but they're also human. Like, how
No.
can the government,
Because we just do.
know
Because
so
that's-
much and not say, hey, this is wrong?
But it's up to people. So, and this is one thing that Bassam is saying all the time. It's up to people to share with other people
Oh, yeah.
the gift of friendship and peace and understanding. Does somebody else have anybody have a question for Bassam? Come down. Yeah. Yep. Thanks. Hey, who else? Who else has a question?
If
Just
you have
come
a
down.
question, just come down to the side and we'll get the line going.
So we have a couple students here with questions.
Sam, I have a question. It's from, I guess, previous classes. We've talked about Iraq and the war, and there are people on the live stream that are saying that you're claiming that we shouldn't go there because we shouldn't have gone there because it was all about oil and whatnot. But now that we're there, we shouldn't leave unless if we do things that are against people like Bassam's family.
Well, so Bassam, did you hear that, right? So we're sort of stuck because we opened up this can of worms, so to speak, right? We've opened up this series of problems. We then go in and make a big mess of trying to fix the problems that we create. And then you have all these Americans who are saying, hey, we need to just get out and go home. We should leave Afghanistan. We should leave Iraq. We just got to leave those people to solve their own problems when we've created the problems. And so you know, this is the struggle that we have, right? And that people, it's easy if you don't know the history to make this proclamation, but I know the history, and I happen to just feel differently about that.
It's like, yeah, we have an issue now. Like, okay, so we went into this area for the wrong reason, and we did it with the support of specific groups that we gave weapons to help in other wars. Like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The whole reason that we gave weapons to what that later became Islamic terrorist groups was because we needed their help to defeat communism way back in like the 40s and 30s. So now we have this issue where all these people in these areas have these countries that are falling apart. What do? Do we just leave them to burn, or do we help them?
So this is what Bassem, you and I have talked about this a lot, about all the weapons that are made in the United States.
Let me cut in. There was an entering strategy, there was no exit strategy for the United States. They left us in the middle of, and then they had to come back. Now the people of Iraq are scared of another dilemma that's coming, which is the escalation between the United States and Iran. Every Iraqi is scared that Iraq will be the battle zone between the United States and Iran.
So it just keeps going. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi, my name is Layla. I'm actually originally Iraqi, and I just wanted to say that I admire you very much, Bassem, and that my mother actually experienced something very similar in that her house was bombed in 1993. And I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Layla Latar. She's my grandma, and she was killed tragically in the accident, and I think your story resonated with me a lot because I've witnessed my mother's similar pain, and I know that it's obviously a very difficult thing to go through. I mean, it's a little bit different because she lost her parents, but she was also blinded. She lost one of her eyes, and so that's something that she still deals with, and I know it's something that you never really recover from totally. So again, I admire your bravery.
Hang on. Bassem, do you have the sense? You heard all that, yeah?
The voice is breaking. I don't hear very well. Do you have a question for me?
Yeah, say
voice is.
Wait, hang on. You're going to do this.
Okay.
You know, Jeff, let me tell you something. Skype is much better than Zoom.
Yeah. Okay, hang on 1 second, Bassem. So, if you give me a thumbs up if you can hear her while she's talking, okay? Okay. All right, mute your mic and then we'll start.
All right. Hi, my name is Layla. I'm originally Iraqi. My parents are from Baghdad. And I just wanted to say that I admire your bravery because my mother went through a similar experience where her home was bombed in 1993, and she lost both of her parents, and she was blinded in one eye, and I've got to witness her recovery from that. I mean, obviously I was born many years later, but it's something that she still deals with every day, and I know losing loved ones that way is obviously extremely difficult, and I just wanted to say that I admire your resilience because I know she didn't have the same opportunities to speak out the way you have.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm sorry for your relative. Every Iraqi lives with some kind of war casualty, especially now in Mosul after the liberation of the city from ISIS. Thousands of people were killed, injured. We have so many children orphaned. West City is completely destroyed, and Mosul is. I portray Mosul like Leningrad in like World War II. So destruction of Mosul is nothing I mean, destruction we had in Mosul during the 2003 invasion was nothing compared to what we have in Mosul now.
Hey, so what's your name again? Naila?
Layla.
Naila?
Layla.
Layla. So listen, Bassem, Layla referred to you as brave. Do you see yourself as brave?
I'm not brave, I just talk.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Layla. Thanks. Yes.
Hi, my name is Dana. I'm first gen, but my dad is from Jordan. And I.
Wait, Bassem, can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay, you good? Thumbs up?
Cool
Okay.
beans. First, I really admire that you look at this with the tragedies that are happening around you, and you have forgiveness, because I'm definitely still struggling with that. Like, I was in the back angry, crying about it, because it's hard, because thank God my family has not experienced something like this, but it's the thought of that's still my people and my family. So my question is, how do you bridge the gap of talking to people who don't really know a lot about this, and there's still a lot of hate in their hearts towards the Muslim community, because there's a lot of hate speech going around, and like you said, we need to talk, but it's hard to start a conversation with a lot of people. So that's, if I get some advice.
Okay, so like I've said this before in this class, I always separate the ordinary American civilian from the policies of this country. I was in the States for 8 years. I never had any problems. I have so many American friends. Now, right here, now in Erbil, I have a few American friends, journalists, and we talk, we sit down and have tea and coffee. The ordinary Iraqi citizen is not a terrorist, just like the ordinary American is not a killer of everybody. Mm-hmm. It's the policies of the country that's giving a bad name to Americans. Americans are loving people. I can vouch for that. Just like we Iraqis are not terrorists, Muslims and Arabs. Mm-hmm. I want to get this point to everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Bassem. I think that one thing that wait, hang on one second. What's your name?
Dana.
All right. One thing that Dana said was that there's a lot of hate speech going around. You know, what are you hearing? Like, what are you?
I know at least I'm pretty darn white passing, but with like my dad, he's much darker, and growing up in the age of mass terrorism and hearing the slurs that people would throw at you, like even in like the grocery store, but just getting past the initial hatred that they throw at you, because the only way to change that is to talk to them. So it's to get past that point that I'm struggling with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that this is one of the things right now in particular that's very sad, and that I'm watching this emerge again. And it's just really unfortunate, because the vast majority of Americans, Bassem, for you, I mean, watching you here and other Muslims, the vast majority of Americans are kind. They don't have the hate speech. Maybe they're afraid of Muslims. They might be afraid of you, but they would sit down and talk to you. If you ask them, they're afraid, but they're going to sit down and talk, and they're going to engage. And that's how Muslims are. And it's how Jews are with Palestinians, and Palestinians with Jews. And it's just one thing after another. And so I think that one of the things I think with you, Bassem, that's so important is just giving a vision for the opportunity of them, that Muslims really will talk and want to talk. And, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Who else?
Hate speech, don't get so upset by it. I mean, we have a saying in Arabic, you have 5 fingers, not all your 5 fingers are the same. You have hate speech, this is acceptable, it's understandable. You have hate speech from our side toward you. We just need to curb it down and not let this affect us and grow beyond control.
Yeah, because things can get very dangerous very quickly. Okay, another question, comment.
Salams. I just have a question because I feel like a lot of Americans like hear a lot of stuff in the media, and I think like Fox News comes to mind when it like putting like negative connotations towards like Muslims or just like these countries in general. Like, how do you address that sort of particular view on media? Like, how do you say like, okay, this is how we perceive it, even though like you might hear one thing?
So Bassem, like,
Repeat the question. Can you please repeat the question, Sam?
so how do you, one of the things that we see with a lot of media, hang on, what's your specific question?
I don't know, just like for me, like when I watch like Fox News, there's like a lot of connotation towards like Muslims, and like a lot of family members that I know like have like watched this news and stuff like that, and they perceive Muslims and stuff like that in a particular way, and they've heard it for so many years. How do you say like, okay, maybe something that you've heard for so long?
Yeah. So the issue, Bassem, is, in the United States, when you go really into the heartland here, Muslim equals dangerous. Muslim equals war. Muslim equals power. Muslim equals terrorist. It's just negative. It's just not, the two are never together in the same sentence as peace and love and so on for so many parts of the United States. And so your message is immensely powerful, but is one, what you're saying is, it's one that really has to break through a lot of just hate, a lot of fear. Yeah. But it does. It is. Look at this guy,
Wording confusion, and we are bringing students from Penn State to students in Mosul, in Erbil. We're trying to gather bridges between them. Our students here, they have some ideas about the United States, which is wrong. The same with the United States. The problem with the United States, it's so far away from here. It's a continent. It's a big country. I know many of my American friends, they have never left their state or city. So how do you expect them to know about Iraq, Muslim, Arab, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all these hot areas in the world? You have to talk. When you hear somebody, just sit down, talk to him calmly, try to convince him. That's what empathy is all about. Just understand their fear and try to get them out of this loop.
Yeah. I am so with you on that here. Thanks, Bassem. Thanks, bro. Who else has a question? Who else wants to ask a question? Because we can keep asking questions. Who else has got a question? How about some Christians who would want to say something? One of the Christian messages, and a powerful Christian message, is forgiveness. Jesus taught forgiveness. When Jesus was on the cross, it was forgive them for they don't know what they do, bro. So it would be really interesting to hear from a couple of Christians. All right, my friend, there you are.
So my name's Jacob Jansen, and I want to start by saying that my cousin died in the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And, my family's grown up very more military, more Christian, conservative. But I wanted to say, even though all this hate started towards Muslims and Islam, even though my family experienced that with the World Trade Centers, surprisingly, my family was never very hateful because we were Lutherans, and one of the big things they push in Lutheranism is, forgiveness. We're not as strict as Catholicism, so I think my viewpoint was, and I know it was the opposite story for a lot of people, but I think it was religion can cause a lot of conflicts, but especially in my family, we tried to stick to, our morals and, not prevent love from spreading across the world versus all the hate from what happened afterwards and all that. So I think, as a Christian, I do really care about what's happening in the Middle East. I'm a part of the ELCA, and we try to do a lot of events that kind of string on helping people versus, more Catholicism, which is more strictly based. So I want to say that, from my viewpoint, not all Christians, most Christians don't view this the same way as, what the American government does.
So I have no doubt that not all Christians. The funny thing, Mosul in the 50s and the 40s had a large community of Jewish, a very large community of Christians. So after the 48 war with Israel, so many Jews left Mosul. Christians stayed in Mosul. We have many villages surrounding Mosul. It's 100% Christians. What happened in Mosul and with ISIS situation, the Christians left the city. I can tell you, before I left Iraq in 1879, I had more Christian friends than I had Muslim friends, believe it or not. But what happened with ISIS, the Christians looked at every Muslim was the person who took their house, destroyed their property, stored their belongings. And many of my friends, for 3, 4, 5 months after ISIS took over Mosul, I can feel the change in their voice toward me. So I just let them be. I left them for 4, 5, 6 months, and then I started talking to them after they calmed down. And then when they realized that not me as a Muslim is the person who took their house and their belongings in Mosul, it was fanatics who claim to be Muslims, but they are very, very far from Islam. Thank you so much, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, bro. Yeah, I think it's the fanatics piece, right? Yeah, bro. Another question here.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for coming and speaking. I was just wondering, in any religion, and you kind of started speaking towards this, but in any religion, any passage can be taken out of context and used for obviously bad things. So I was wondering if that's what you would say, not to generalize all of Muslims, but the Muslims that are doing these awful things, would you say that they are taking the more violent passages from the Quran out of context and using it out of context to support whatever they're trying to do?
Mm-hmm. So the idea...
Voice is really terrible.
Okay, here, I'll say it again. So one of the issues is that what fanatic religious believers do is they take religious text, and they twist that text for their own desires, their own needs, and then they use the text to commit violence against other people. And is that what you would say you see among the fanatics, say ISIS and so on?
Yeah, you take a verse from Quran or from Sunnah, and you cater it to your need, to your point of view, and you take half of it and you leave the other half. We have a saying. There was a saying in Islam: don't go near a mosque and pray if you are drunk. Drinking in Islam is prohibited. So one day, I don't know exactly who, he went into a mosque and he was drunk and he made a mess out of the praying procedure. So Prophet Muhammad, he said, don't come to a mosque if you're drunk. So people say, don't go to mosque, don't go near prayer. And they left the drunk part out of it. So people say, don't go to a mosque. This is a funny part of misrepresenting and taking half of the verses, half of the facts written in Quran, and tailoring it your way. So this is not the whole thing.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, right? So don't even go to a mosque at all, right? Quickly. Yeah. You can and speak right into here, actually.
Speak right into there.
Yep.
Am I looking right at you now?
Yep.
Okay. Because my thoughts immediately go to you see in the Bible too, there's passages in the Old Testament that are very violent, And like my thoughts when it comes to the Quran is like going to chapter 9 of the Quran, right? Like known as a very violent part of the Quran. So I was kind of wondering, is there any applicable part to the Muslim life that you get from that part of the Quran, or is that maybe overlooked more in Muslim communities? I'm just kind of wondering, like, being twisted, what is like a more right way to apply it?
So here, can I respond to that, Bassem? I'm going to respond. Yeah. So if you're an Islamic scholar, you can take any piece. It's allegory, right? I'm going to speak as a sociologist. It's allegory, just like with the Bible, the Old Testament, New Testament. And you could take any piece that has a message in it, right? That sounds like it's some kind of violence. But I know Muslims who would never even step on an ant or kill a fly, and they read the Quran and there's nothing at all violent in it because everything is just allegory and stories. And it's just like the Bible. It's like you said, the Old Testament. God in the Old Testament is pretty mean and evil, actually. You know what I mean? Anyway, all right. So here, but on the screen is Mr. Rashidi. Are you there? Can you hear me? I see. Can you pull him into the main piece? Hey, Mr. Rashidi. So, this is another colleague, Mr. Rashidi from Afghanistan, who is listening. How are you, sir?
Fine, thanks. And you, Sam?
I am well. Hey, tell us, what do you hear from Bassem? What does Bassem teach you? Because, by the way, this person... Wait, hang on 1 second, Mr. Rashid. 1 minute, 1 second. Just so you know, I just want to hear a couple words from him. This gentleman right here, in all of my travels around the world and all the people I've ever met in the United States, this person is the kindest, most gentle, most loving human being I've ever met in my life. He lives in Kabul, Afghanistan. Bassem is the second most loving, actually. But this guy's the most loving, right? So, Mr. Rashidi, tell me what you hear from Bassem. What do you get from him?
Yeah. First of all, hello to everyone in this class. I'm kind of your classmate. I watch all these streams. Bassem is not an athlete only for me. It's a lesson for all people who live all over the world. It's a lesson for them to learn from Bassem. And I learned a lot from Bassem, from his talking. Never I directly to speak to Bassem, but I heard from this class. He's an athlete for me, and I love him. I like to be like Bassem.
Yeah. My friend, you are very much like Bassem. Okay. Because I've learned...
Thank you, sir.
I learned to love from you and from Bassem. So you have many more things to teach me. But
Sam, I want to add something about Islam and religions. Every human, we all come and we are human if you have time. But religion comes to teach us for being good. But we use the religion against humanity. Yeah, it's not what the religion says. I read many books, many holy books, and Quran. The whole says being good, being a good human, but now it's used against humanity. And so the extremist group use them like ISIS and far rights. Yeah, they feed each other. Yeah, and all over the world. In our country, when someone goes to the United States, they say, if you go to the United States, you will be killed by the people in the United States. The same, it's told to those people who live in the United States, you will be killed if you go to Iraq or Afghanistan or any other country. But it's not like this. There are many people who like all the people. I think you don't have time, Sam. I will come one day, another day, and I'll talk.
Yeah, thank you. I think your message is very powerful. It's not the holy text. It is how people take that holy text and use it for their own purposes. Yeah. Hey, so, yes.
I'm being asked by the stream about 800 times if we can talk about homosexuality in Islam, because every time that it's brought up, they always, like especially Americans will say, well, Muslims just throw gay people off buildings and that's what they believe. Like, that's it. That's okay. And then the conversation ends. But as a person who has met Bassem in person, when he came to the U.S. a year ago, I actually drove to the airport, picked him up, and we talked for hours. And he's very, very aware that I'm gay, and it does not matter to him. And I don't know if either one, if Mr. Rashidi or Bassem, if you want to comment on the difference between your personal belief and your religious beliefs, or how you see it, but it's being brought up time and time again.
Well, here, Bassem, come back on, Bassem, and say your last. Wait, hang on. No, Bassem, make your last. We have 1 minute left, so make your final statement.
Just like Mr. Rashidi said, we need to go back to our exact religion, don't use it to our benefit and leave the good part out of it. We are all sons of God. We love each other.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. And thank you, and also thank you, Mr. Rashidi, and we will see you. Thank you.
Thank you too.